podcast. All right, house show underway here. We mentioned this earlier. Another rough weekend, which has led to a ton of speculation about what exactly is going on in the WWE. But there were, I think it was like 11 or 12. There was a pretty large number, 13 cuts on the NXT roster. Now, that's not something that you hear about very often. You normally hear like Bray Wyatt, whether you feel like the character expired, Braun Strowman, whether you feel like the character expired, those were big money deals. Like those were probably $1 million guaranteed deals that they let walk. So you're talking about budget cuts and speculation about Vince McMahon selling and all of this different stuff. Like that's one thing for those guys. Rarely do you see NXT cuts along this lines, especially with guys like Bronson Reed, Bobby Fish, guys who are like actively involved in programming. And I was, trying to read up on this stuff and listen to this stuff from, Dave Meltzer this morning. And he was talking about, this round of cuts was led by Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, and John Laurinaitis. Now, again, this is Dave Meltzer, and I'm not like an anti-Meltzer guy. I like Dave Meltzer a lot. Some of you know he's done my podcast. He did my old radio show. Like I'm a Dave Meltzer guy. Like I enjoy his work at the Wrestling Observer. I don't believe he's the be-all, end-all to everything, but I do believe he's pretty well informed. And for Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, and John Laurinaitis to lead these cuts, it leaves me scratching my head because it's Triple H and Shawn Michaels and a handful of others that kind of run the NXT brand. And now there's a belief that there are some major changes coming to the NXT brand. Now, we've seen it evolve over the years. We've seen it evolve as like this young developmental territory, like young guys would come in and they would, try to establish themselves, get work there. And then we would see, okay, we're going to bring in a guy like Shinsuke Nakamura, and we want him, to kind of wean himself off of that Japan style and get here accustomed to the WWE style. And then we'd see Samoa Joe's. I mean, we'd see most guys travel through NXT with AJ Styles obviously being a major exception. But now there's a belief that all that is over. They're going back to, allegedly, they're going back to the old developmental role. Like they're going back to just strictly young talent. They're not signing guys in their 30s anymore. They're not bringing guys from TNA, or they're not bringing guys from, Japan who have established records already and bringing them in to learn the WWE style. Like they're coming in, they're bringing in strictly young guys now. And that's a fascinating change to what NXT has been. And the fact that it's McMahon, Pritchard, and Laurinaitis came into promise with the company when they were sold or when they purchased WCW. So think about that. That was 20 years ago. Yeah, Jesus, that was 20 years ago that WWE bought WCW. Bruce Pritchard's been with the company on and off since like 1987. These are the dudes still making decisions for the company. Now, it's one thing for Vince McMahon to do it because Vince McMahon owns the company. But Pritchard booked the Mega Powers Explode. You know what I mean? Pritchard booked the Ultimate Warrior Championship run. Like, think about how long ago. Those guys are still in charge of television, and those are the guys that are in charge of the next generation of professional wrestlers. Now, I'm not insinuating that those guys don't see talent, but damn, maybe you want to bring in someone else who sees the way things are done now versus the way things were done in the 1980s. Because I think those guys still very much see the way things were done in the 1980s versus the way things are done now, because they're not the same. NXT looked very different from WWE for a reason. And the reason was Vince McMahon had less call on it.